Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Coffee with Carl. I'm your host, as always, Carl Zoellner, one of the senior attorneys with Anderson Business Advisors. And today I wanted to take a look at that traditional entity structure. And then also, ultimately, I'm sharing my screen here. You should be able to see it. Let me hop over to the actual presentation, though, so you can sort of see my cursor moving as I talk about some of these things. So on the traditional, you'll see it labeled here at the top. Basically, what you see is everything sort of flows down, and this is similar to the description I did in the reintroduction, sort of the business entities video that I would encourage you to watch if you hadn't seen it already. And so everything sort of funnels down into the living trust here. So you've got you've got holding companies, rental properties. So yeah, this one in this scenario is in Maine. This is actually just a version, and if you look at the name on there, of one of my very first entity structures for myself. So I'm using my own stuff, so I don't have to basically use a client's and get permission and do all those things. So that being said, this is not the same structure I have currently. So if anybody's got any wise ideas out there, move along with them. So yeah, ultimately, the traditional structure, like I said, is intended to sort of funnel down into that living trust. And then so that's why you see that living trust at the bottom. At the point I made this, I was still actually considering living in Texas just because of the unlimited homestead exemption and no state income tax. But Anderson was able to lure me to the Nevada office. So basically, that trust changed into a Nevada. And then, like I said, my investments are sort of different from state specific, as well as real estate versus brokerage and things like that are different as well. But yeah, so the traditional, like I said, sort of visual depiction that y'all are probably used to on your end will look like this, just because that we took a vote at some point and the consensus was basically the funneling in to that living trust sort of made the most sense from an explanation standpoint, or people were able to grasp that concept a little bit quicker than if we flipped it over, or I'll introduce even a new way to look at it, just because, like I said, ultimately want to give everybody as many different perspectives as possible to help them better understand what they've got going on. And so, yeah, that's the traditional style. Like I said, it's more of should be kind of viewed like a funnel. Everything goes into the living trust, though, so that way my estate won't have to probate in any of the other states I have assets in, just because, quite frankly, it's expensive from both a fee standpoint as well as a time standpoint. So where we can avoid that, we should, especially if you're in a state like California, things like that, where they have statutory probate fees that start at basically 8% of your gross estate. That's right, gross, not net, your gross estate. Because ultimately, if you're a state or you can't pay your probate fees, ultimately that kind of results in having to sell stuff off to being able to pay them. And quite frankly, the government is great at spending money, but are they great at spending it efficiently and for the benefit? I would argue probably not. You could probably point those things to your beneficiaries and do a better job passing on your legacy through your own living trust. So where the government gives us a choice, I'm more inclined to take it and use my own sort of expertise and education to direct where my investments go, versus allowing some nameless, faceless entity to write blank checks to foreign countries, quite frankly. So ultimately, like I said, this piece here is how your structures are put together, or your visual depiction that you can see in your Platinum portal will look. And it's intended, as I mentioned, to be sort of a funnel and shows everything going in. Basically, if you look at the source lines, everything ends up in the living trust because it's the most efficient way to pass your assets on and get the full step up in basis on capital assets, including real estate, brokerage accounts, and businesses. So ultimately, this is the traditional view. Next up will be the flipped view. If you haven't already, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Also, please remember to do that with the other channels on the Anderson channel as well. So with Toby and Clint videos, things like that. It just lets us know that people are enjoying the free content, so we keep making it. And then, yeah, if you're not a client already, I would also encourage you to sign up for a strategy session. That way we can sort of put your own visual depiction in place for you. And if, ultimately, if you haven't been to one of our online or in-person events recently, you should as well, as there is some updates that have happened, of course, with the presidential transition. And so something to keep track of as far as new updates and things like that. But yeah, so once again, this is the traditional view. So basically everything goes from the top down into the living trust. And like I said, the whole purpose is basically getting everything into the living trust so that the government doesn't get basically the things you've spent your entire lifetime building, and you can direct where they go. Even if you just say, listen, I want everything to stay in the trust. I want my family to add to the trust over time, and ultimately don't distribute the assets, but you can distribute some of the income from the assets in order, if somebody needs something for, health, education, or maintenance standards, that comes with that living trust as well. So yeah, ultimately traditional view, just remember top down, and down or at the bottom or the base of the whole thing is the living trust to make sure that you can move your assets or pass them on how you see fit, not how the government necessarily sees fit. So yeah, that's the traditional one. Like I said, next up, we'll show you the sort of a bottom. So this is top down. The next one is going to be flipped over, just quite frankly, because that's how, when I started, that's how I envisioned it. I envisioned the living trust as more of an umbrella than sort of a catch at the bottom. So that'll be the next video. I would encourage you all to watch that too, because like I said, if you're having some different things you're looking at and just want to get sort of the more holistic view, I think just the different perspectives can be a little helpful, as well as if you grab, sort of one piece from each perspective at the end of the video series, you should have a better idea of sort of at least where everything goes, or our overall strategy on how we organize these things. So once again, thank you for joining me with Coffee with Carl. And as a final reminder, if you haven't liked, subscribed, and shared, please do so. And then, please keep also taking advantage of all of our free content out there. And if you haven't had that personal consultation to get your own personalized plan in place, please do. We've got lots of great attorneys and lots of great advisors that'll help put you in the right position from both a tax and legal perspective to protect those things that you have ultimately spent a lifetime building. And so we appreciate that, because we are all investors as well. Thank you all for joining me once again. And we'll catch you on the next episode of Coffee with Carl. Bye-bye.